Hey, what's up guys? Today we are going to get started on putting the new exhaust, the Active Auto Works single mid pipe, onto the M4. Okay, the tools that you're going to need for this job is something to pull the car up onto so you can get your jack in there. I used blocks of wood, but I have two jack stands. Now these here I used for the rubber hangers. You know, this is really good for pinching them back onto your new exhaust, and this is good for prying them off. And to make your cut on the stock exhaust, where you're bolting it to or mating it up to the stock muffler, I used an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. And I used a flap disc to make everything nice and clean, you know, and I got something to ream out the inside. And when you do that, just make sure you tip it over, blow it out, make sure there's no metal and stuff inside the exhaust. Also, for those rubber hangers, PB Blaster, WD-40, something to help slick it up will definitely be beneficial. Also, to make that cut, I used just some masking tape and just went around it and used a tape measure. Had to measure 1.5 inches from the weld, and then something to mark it with. Now for your brace that goes across the middle, you'll need an Allen key that's the correct size. I just picked one that worked. Now there was a 8mm nut on one of the hangers, and everything else was a 13mm for the exhaust hangers. You'll need an extension for most of it, and then an extension and a U-joint for when you're trying to get over top of the exhaust to get the bolts on the flanges for the downpipes. You're going to need an 11mm, a 12, and a 13mm socket, and you should be set with all that. Now I don't have ramps or quick jacks or anything, but I do have my old jack and a couple jack stands, so I thought it'd be easier if I bought another jack. And what we're going to do is, for people that don't have the quick jacks and stuff like that, we are going to drive up on a couple boards, just enough to clear so we can get our jack under there and lift the vehicle up, and then put our jack stands under it, and I'll show y'all where to do that at, and then use both jack stands to lift the rear. See here, we ended up having to use a couple blocks of wood, but just be careful because that shit was sliding. But we did get our jack under here, and look, if you got a regular jack, this is all the room you got, but it will work. Okay, so now I do have the car up on jack stands, and I got the back on crib blocks. That should give me enough room to crawl and slide around in there. And I'll show you all the places to lift on the vehicle. Here's one right here. This is close to the back tire. This is one of the points that they want you to lift from. See, there's the back tire. Then there's this. And then there's two more in the front behind the front tire. And you can see that's where my jack stands are. And this right here, hanging down, this is another place to lift from with your jack. So what I did was put the jack in here, lifted it up, and then got those sides on jack stands. Okay, the first things I've took off so far, and these were all like a weird, maybe like 11mm, is these little nuts that were on these bolts for the flanges for the downpipes. Okay, so towards the rear of the vehicle, you got these little rubber bushings that they hang on, and there's some bolts coming down through where like the subframe is, and those are 13mm. And about everything else is an 11. You can take those off too. Those were also 13s. So now what we need to do is get these off of there and put onto the new exhaust. Alright guys, we got the single mid pipe on. All we got left is this, and then cutting the stock muffler off and putting it back on. Okay, so I got both of the other pipes on that connect to the stock muffler. And the next thing you have to do is actually cut. You gotta measure out 1.5 inches. I don't know if you can see my mark I made here. 1.5 inches, and that will be your cut to mount your stock muffler back onto the new exhaust. All right guys, we got the exhaust on there. I did run short of time because I had to go to the gym, and then me and some buddies went to get some wings and beer. But anyway, we are back. It's later tonight, so I'll give you all some sound clips in the morning, but I'll roll back under here and kind of show y'all what I done. Okay, the first section of the exhaust, you just have to bolt to the flange for the downpipes, and I think these were all like an 11 millimeter, and you know, you have to use an extension and a U-joint to get to the ones on the top. And then you got one exhaust hanger, it's a little rubber hanger here that you'll have to put onto the new exhaust. Now moving on back to the next portion, you will have to put the this plate on, and it uses an Allen wrench, and that just goes right under the exhaust. You'll have to take the stock brace off to put this brace on, and there's 6 bolts. There's 3 on this side and 3 over there. And then the next part of it is, you know, your 2 separate pipes where it goes from the single mid, and then it splits into 2. And you know, make sure you put your clamps on where they're not hanging down and can drag on stuff, but still easy to access like I do here. And everything else on the vehicle, I think, is like a 13 millimeter. So the one that has more of a curve to it will actually go on the driver's side, and the one that's a little bit straighter will actually go on the passenger side. See, just like a straight shot. And it goes on back to there and goes in between, kind of like your A-arms for your back axle and stuff. It'll go in between there. Now these hangers here are actually pretty nice. You can take them off with a 13 millimeter socket as well. So you can take this whole thing down, get it on the ground, and then transfer this. It's easier to do outside the vehicle. That's the way I did it. Onto your new exhaust. And then when you get it under here, you know, you just bolt it right back up. You ain't got to fool with the hanger anymore. Now back here, you know, I got the stock muffler, which I took down, and that's also 13 millimeter sockets. You know, you can take that whole rubber hanger down. You see the bolt there's one on the other side as well. There's an electrical connection for your valves, and you know, you unplug that wire, and then you can drop that down. And remember, we made the cut. It was 1.5 inches from this weld. And you know, if you don't get the cut perfect, this clamp here is pretty big. It's like 3 inches probably. So you got plenty of you know, wiggle room here. But anyway, where you make the cut, then you know what I did is I hung the exhaust back up the way that it should be, and then I slid these clamps, you know, kind of mated the new exhaust to the stock muffler. Okay, now when y'all get done, you know, just make sure that the exhaust is lined up how you want it. And you know, I do have a problem with this little lip right here. This was installed before I had the car, so I don't know what's taking place there. It's like popping out, but I'll fix that later. But other than that, everything else is lined up pretty good the way that I want it. So I went back under and tightened all my connections and everything back up, and the car is ready to be sent back onto the ground. Guys, I know it's late, but I went ahead and got y'all some sound clips anyway, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I'll see y'all on the next one.